Jai Bhagwan, and good morning. It always catches me a little bit off guard when I hear the harmonium fade away into the distance, and I can still hear a harmonium playing somewhere. Thank you for joining me this morning for our morning satsang. Removing or cut the root of suffering. Let's go ahead and chant the Asatoma prayer. To prayer position. As you exhale, let the eyes open. And again, Jai Bhagwan. So today's satsang, Yoga Sutras 12 through 16, with a bit of a, well, wait, I won't spoil the ending. So Wednesday, Patanjali said, or rather we read from Patanjali, when these elements of psychic distress are mere ripples on the surface of the mind stuff, this is 11, and when they become more gross and operative, they can be dispelled by contemplation. If we start to exercise some self-study and look at what's the real source of this. In 12, he says, all actions bear to the fivefold psychic disturbance or distress a mutual cause and effect relationship. In other words, he says, if you do A, action A, effect B naturally follows, and that B always follows A. But that then we respond over here to B, and we now take action B, which causes effect C, which might take us back to A, or which will take us on to another action. It's like pushing a rock down a hill. That rock hits another rock, and those two rocks hit 4 rocks, and before long, you have an avalanche. All actions bear to the fivefold psychic disturbance or distress a mutual cause and effect relationship, and thus sustaining a chain reaction. Hence, actions lead to afflictions. No, meaning not necessarily afflictions as in necessarily bad things. Remember, the afflictions are the 5 kleshas: ignorance, egoism, likes, dislikes, and clinging to bodily life. These are the 5 afflictions or kleshas. And the biggest one, remember, is ignorance, because the other 4 grow out of ignorance. Hence, action leads to afflictions which manifest in the obvious physical life as experiences of pleasure, pain, etc., and also in the subtle mental states, likes and dislikes, here in this lifespan or in other not so obvious life states. We'll just focus on this lifespan, okay? And such afflictions, the ego sense and ignorance, remember he's reminding us of these 5 things, generate further actions. However, this need not forever be so. For from these effects, the causes can be known, and the root cause made inoperative. Cut the root. When we begin to recognize, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing that thing that always causes me trouble. And what's our next response? We usually beat ourselves up for doing that thing that always causes the trouble. And now we feel worse because we've beaten ourselves up for doing the thing which causes us trouble. And I don't know why she swallowed the fly. I guess she'll die. Right? There was an old woman who swallowed a fly. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly. She swallowed the cat, right? We know the song. And things just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, trying to resolve having swallowed a fly. But once we know the root cause, the fly wasn't the problem. The problem was she swallowed a fly. Why did she swallow a fly? Maybe her mouth was gaping open. Why did we swallow the fly? Because we remain ignorant. As long as the roots of these psychic disturbances exist generating their consequent actions. Their expansion and fruition are inevitable. You can't just pluck the flower off of a dandelion and expect the dandelions to all disappear. You can't even pull up the leaves and part of the root and expect the dandelion to disappear, because it has a root that goes way down, which will regenerate. Their fruition takes place in different lifespans, perhaps in different species and in diverse experiences. Again, let's focus on this lifespan. Such fruition is, therefore, an unmistakable pointer to the persistence of spiritual ignorance and its offspring that are the fountain source of sorrow. Ignorance is the source of sorrow. And notice sorrow, he doesn't say pain. He doesn't say ignorance is the source of pain. He says ignorance is the source of sorrow. In other translations, it's the source of suffering. These experiences, 14, which are the results of virtue and vice, are sweet and bitter fruits, causing happiness and agony, respectively, that are found all along the path of life. These things are common. You've experienced them, I have experienced them. And we tend to divide all of our experiences into painful and non-painful, into virtue and vice. However, he says in 15, the wise, though their own minds are totally free of sorrow, consider all experiences painful. Why would they consider all experiences painful? Why would someone who is wise consider eating their favorite dessert painful? Because the effect of eating their favorite dessert is wanting more dessert. And that creates that cycle. So do the wise simply eat nothing, drink nothing, and die? No. The very pleasures are accompanied by the painful realization that they are subject to change. Another example of this, I have a friend, many of you have heard me name him before, Chandrakant. And years ago, he was living in a tent city, kind of day-to-day, hand-to-mouth type thing. And he realized he only had, I think he said 10 or 15 cents to his name that day, and he needed to earn some money. So he went out and looked for a day job. And I believe he said when he came back he had like $129 or something like that. And this was in the 70s. That was a lot of money. I wish who wouldn't want to make $129 dollars or more a day? Anyway. And again, $1970. He said, first thing in the morning when I realized I really had no money, all I could think about was, I need to get some money so I can survive. And when I came back to the tent that night with this money, all I could think about is, what do I do to protect this money? The pain comes from the realization that these things are subject to change. Constant, and so getting the very thing we're looking for has built into it fear that we're going to lose the very thing we have. Constant and violently painful craving for repetitive experience of pleasure in a vain attempt to cancel the change fills the interval with pain. We realize I'm not going to have, once I finish this ice cream, there's going to be no more ice cream to eat. And then I'm going to want more ice cream, but there'll be no more ice cream. I'm going to be wandering around the house looking for ice cream, and that's just not cool. Because we're trying to fill the void. We're constantly trying to fill this void, and everything we throw into the void just disappears into the void. All this leaves an enduring impression on the mind, which impression creates the painful tendency to crave for the avoidance of pain. And then we try to find other things to throw into the void so we won't feel the pain, that everything disappears into the void. Which creates the painful tendency to crave for the avoidance of pain, which alone is therefore continuous. We have this continual longing for things. I had one friend who put it this way. His name's Eric. He says, "Why do you buy a new car?" And people gave all sorts of reasons, and he said, "No, those are not, none of those are the reason why you buy a new car. The reason why you buy a new car is to stop the desire, I want a new car." And people disagreed with him, and he says, wait, no, hold on, think about this. If you want a new car, there's a desire. You have a desire for a new car. It may have started with, I need a bigger vehicle, I need this thing, I'm driving a clunker, whatever. But somehow a desire comes up, I want a new car. If you go and buy a new car and you still have that desire, I want a new car, you have not accomplished anything. He says, but you go and you buy a new car and it satiates, at least for a time, that desire for a new car. He says, but then as soon as you drive it off the lot, you see a truck pull in with next year's model of the very car you're in, and the desire is back. Oh, I wish I had waited until tomorrow, because then I could have the new model. I'm stuck with the old model. Sucks to be me. And so Patanjali says this pain is the only thing that's continuous. And there is constant conflict in oneself as the psychological mood changes with every change in the thought form and the mind stuff, and the conflict is sorrow. The wise see everything as painful. Sounds miserable. Why would you want to be wise? If the wise see everything as painful, why would you ever want to be one of those wise guys? Why not just stay in ignorance? What is that phrase? Ignorance is bliss? Why not just stay in ignorance? 16. Yet all is not lost, for sorrow that has not yet arrived, not yet reached the field of experience, can be avoided. Unhappiness that has not yet befallen may be avoided by avoiding psychic contact with it. And we're not going to get into the how of that today. Right? Leaving you with a little bit of a cliffhanger for the weekend. As many of you know, my mother has been going through a lot of health challenges. She's just been diagnosed with liver cancer. March 12th, I believe, was the day. 2 days ago, she went in for a liver embolization, which is where they block there's a main vein that comes into the liver, and it branches into 3 smaller veins, and 2 feed the right side of the vein, and 1 feeds the left side, which travels back here behind. And they blocked off these 2 right veins, because that's where the tumor is. It's sitting up here. It's causing a lot of pressure against the diaphragm. That's very painful. And so they took a long needle and wire and went through the right side into the liver. And I'm not sure if they had to go into the intercostal spaces between the ribs, or if they were able to go underneath. I haven't really been able to look where exactly they went through. There's a number of different ways they can go into the liver, depending on a person's anatomy and the anatomy of the tumor, or rather the anatomy of the liver. And when they brought her up to recovery, she was in more pain than myself or my father had ever seen. Not just in her, but in my experience in any living person. And I've watched all 4 of my children be born. The amount of pain she was in was indescribable. And I could see she was suffering. And I could see that my father was suffering. And I was not suffering. My heart hurt for them. And yes, I wanted to find some way to help relieve the suffering my mother was experiencing. But Patanjali tells us what suffering is. He said, he says, the conflict is sorrow. It's this desire for what we are experiencing right now, I want a new car, to not be the way it is. It wasn't the pain that was causing the suffering my mom experienced or my dad experienced. It was the wanting for it to be different. How was my experience in that instance different? I wanted it to be different. I mean, I wanted to help my mom not experience pain. But I also knew and accepted that everything that could be done was being done. There was nothing more to do other than to be totally focused on my mom and to help her out the best I could, to be comfortable with the pain she had. I couldn't make the pain go away. The only way I could make the pain go away was to somehow reach back in time and reverse the procedure which she had just gone through. And it might seem that to relieve her pain, that would be a wise thing to do, but that would be a death sentence. Without that procedure, she will not survive the surgery on Tuesday. Pain is inevitable. You will step on Legos. You will stub your toes. I saw a picture on Facebook the other day. Those people who complain about stepping on Legos never played with jacks. And if you're not sure what that means, well, then you've never played with nor stepped on metal jacks. The point is, pain is inevitable. What we do with the pain of life is what determines whether or not we experience sorrow. Sorrow is being in conflict with the way life is right now. When we're in harmony with the way life is right now, that doesn't mean we approve of or enjoy our own pain or someone else's pain, but we're in harmony with it. We're working with the situation, not in conflict with the situation. There's no sorrow. There's no suffering. It means I don't have to be sucked into what my mother's experiencing in a way that causes me sorrow. Instead, I become so engaged in what my mother was experiencing that I can be 100% present for her. I can encourage her to crush the crap. It's amazing how much strength a person has when they're in pain. There's this frail woman with hardly any muscle mass left because this tumor has just been eating all the protein in her body, crushing my hand, and me encouraging her to see if she can't even crush it more and inflict some sort of bodily pain upon me so that she can find some relief for a moment. We don't have to live a life filled with sorrow, where we are in conflict and suffering. Suffering may be a better word than sorrow. Sorrow is pain we feel at another person's pain. And I don't know that that's inappropriate. Suffering is self-caused pain. That is the pain of being in conflict with life. That is the pain of fighting against something against which we have no hope of winning. So why fight it? I had no hope of winning the battle of making my mother's pain go away. I did not have that capacity. So I didn't fight it. I didn't fight the pain. I did everything I could, and so did the nurses and the physicians. They did everything in their power not to fight the pain, but to bring relief, to bring some numbing medication to bring relief. Not to fight the pain, but to cause relief. Look for that in your own life. Don't fight against things. Look for ways to bring ease and ways to bring peace, because that's in harmony with life. That's harmonious. It's not conflict. Bringing relief, bringing peace doesn't cause conflict. Anyone who says they can bring peace through war is a devil and a liar, in that order. Peace can only come by removing conflict, not creating conflict. Don't fight against the things in your life that you're in conflict with. Accept that they are the way they are, and maybe it's a person in your life. See if there is a way for you to bring peace into that experience. If there's not a way to bring peace into that experience, then the harmonious thing to do is to leave the experience. That was not the case with my mother. We had a way to bring her peace. She got enough painkiller, and there's that phrase, that fight. She got enough sedatives. One nurse said, this would knock a horse out, and she's still in pain. And the next injection got the right combination of medications for her system, and she got relief. And now we're continuing to manage that at home, preparation for this surgery. It's the same thing with us on a daily basis. Look at the things in your life where you're in conflict. Don't worry about resolving them back to the roots yet. Just start with not being in conflict, okay? Because on Monday we'll talk about how to remove those roots, how to cut off the roots. Know that the conflict comes from ignorance, egoism, likes, dislikes, clinging to bodily life. And then don't worry about that anymore. Focus on being in harmony with what you experience. All right, it is 8:30. So, my friends, suffering that hasn't yet been experienced can be avoided. Not avoided. I like to see it instead that suffering that hasn't yet been experienced doesn't need to be nurtured, doesn't need to be watered, will not grow. If we know how to cut the root so it doesn't grow. All right. Speaking of that, we have Meditation and Motion Retreat coming up starting next weekend. Well, next week on Thursday night. If you're not able to attend the whole retreat, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning, please join us Thursday night. There's no guarantee on this, I may try to broadcast that Thursday night live stream as we have with morning satsang. We'll see. So that's a possibility. I will let you know as soon as I can whether that will become a reality. Again, and I encourage you to come here to Utah and encourage them and attend the Meditation and Motion Retreat, where all of these things that we've been learning in the mornings are turned from a nice idea into some very practical tools for you to use in your daily life, making your whole life a meditation in motion. If you can't come here to Utah, consider bringing me to where you are. You probably have some friends who would be interested in this same type of thing. And if that feels like too much effort, look for Sadhana of Prana at the Amrit Yoga Institute at amrityoga.org. That is the 3-day version of the 4-day retreat that I lead. Chandrakant started with Sadhana of Prana, and I expanded it slightly to meditation and motion. They're both the same basic retreat. All right, my friends. Thank you for joining me this morning, and thank you to everyone who has expressed well wishes and thoughts and prayers and everything you can from wherever you are on my mother's behalf. I surely appreciate it. Let's take a moment to close the eyes. Focus on breathing. And just take a moment to notice the peace of this moment where you're not in conflict with anything. And just breathe. Let's chant one sound of Om. Take a breath in. As you inhale, bring the hands to prayer position and exhale, the eyes open. Jai Bhagwan. Again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you on Monday. Again and again. Jai Bhagwan.